I should hate him, but why do I feel like he's not quite what I thought? We stand on the edge of chaos. The battlefield is a twisted, burning wasteland, a scorched earth littered with fragments of fallen ships and charred bodies. The acrid smell of smoke chokes the air as the distant hum of explosions reverberates through the ground. This is a place where war never truly ends, a place where soldiers fight until there's nothing left but ash. Lira lies beneath the wreckage of a shattered fortress, her once gleaming armor battered and broken. Blood oozes from multiple gashes along her body, staining the dirt beneath her. Her squad, the ones who fought beside her moments ago, have abandoned her, left her to die in the aftermath of a failed attack. The mission had gone awry, and in the chaos, she was forgotten. Now she is nothing more than a casualty, discarded like so many others. Her breaths are shallow, each one more labored than the last. Pain pulses through her body, threatening to consume her. Her vision is blurred, her thoughts slipping in and out of focus. Lira knows she doesn't have much time. The darkness is creeping in, and soon it will claim her. Her mind races. She had been a warrior of renown, a proud member of her species' finest, but now she is alone, abandoned. She will die here, and no one will remember her name. Then a noise, a faint crackling sound followed by the distant thud of footsteps. At first she thinks it's a hallucination, a trick of her fading mind. But the steps grow louder, approaching her with a purpose. Through the haze she sees a figure, a human warrior clad in the distinctive armor of the enemy forces. Lira's heart skips a beat. She should fight, she knows that. She should make the last stand, defend herself. But her body refuses to obey. She can't even move her arms to raise her weapon. Instead, she watches, her gaze fixed on the human approaching her. The figure steps closer, crouching beside her, with a calm, unhurried grace. He looks down at her, his face obscured by the helmet, but his eyes, Lira can see them now, are filled with something unexpected. There's no malice, no gleam of victory in his gaze. Just focus, concern. Without a word, he reaches into a pouch on his belt and pulls out a field med kit. He begins to assess her injuries with a steady hand, tending to the worst of them with a practiced precision. Lira's mind reels. Why is he helping her? She knows humans are her enemies, yet here he is doing the opposite of what she expects. She tries to speak, but her voice is a hoarse rasp. Why? She manages to croak, her voice shaking with confusion. The human pauses for a moment, glancing at her through his helmet. Then in a voice that's surprisingly gentle, he says, "Because you're still alive, and I don't leave people behind." Lira's thoughts swirl. She can't understand him. She has been taught to view humans as weak, as nothing more than an obstacle to her people's dominance. But this human is something different. She's not sure whether that's comforting or terrifying. Her hand weakly reaches out, grasping at his arm. "Who are you?" Cal, as he later introduces himself, doesn't hesitate to help her to her feet, his grip firm but careful. He doesn't offer an explanation, and Lira doesn't ask. The fire in her chest is still burning, the need to survive, overriding everything else. She needs to escape, but can she trust him? The human looks at her again, his face impassive. "We need to move. There's not much time." Lira hesitates. She doesn't want to rely on this human, doesn't want to trust him. Yet as she stands with his help, she knows that she has no choice. Alone she would die here, and perhaps, just perhaps, this strange human might be her only chance at survival. For now she nods, her grip tightening on him as they begin their escape. The night envelops them quickly, the moonlight barely breaking through the dense canopy of war-torn trees. Lira can feel the weight of the silence pressing down on her, a silence that seems unnatural given the chaos she's just escaped. The sounds of battle still echo faintly in the distance, but they seem so far away now, like a different world entirely. Kyle leads the way, moving with a calm efficiency that contrasts sharply with Lira's own unsteady gait. Her injuries throb, her mind clouded with fatigue. Despite the pain, she pushes herself forward. There is no other choice. The jungle around them is unforgiving, filled with treacherous undergrowth, jagged rocks, and the occasional snap of a distant predator hunting in the night. She knows the dangers of this place, having fought in similar environments before. But now it's different. She has a human guiding her. The uneasy silence between them stretches on. Kale doesn't speak unless necessary, and Lira doesn't know what to say. She should be angry. She should be fighting against the betrayal of trusting him, a human, an enemy. But she isn't. The truth of the matter is that Kale saved her life. There is no denying that. And yet she can't shake the nagging suspicion in the pit of her stomach. Why would he help her? Why would any human help an alien warrior, especially one like her? It doesn't make sense. There's too much history between their species, too much bloodshed. Humans have always been her enemy. And yet this one, Kyle, was the first to show her kindness in a long time. It makes her feel vulnerable in ways she's not accustomed to. As they move through the dense underbrush, Kyle's footsteps are steady, his every movement measured. Lira notices that, despite the long hours they've been walking, he shows no sign of weariness. How does he do it? How does he remain so calm, so composed in the face of everything that's happened? She can barely keep her thoughts together. She should feel nothing but hatred toward him, but instead she feels something else. Gratitude, perhaps. And that unsettles her. "You should rest," Kel says suddenly, his voice breaking the silence. Lira startles slightly, caught off guard by his calm tone. She shakes her head, dismissing the idea. "I'm fine," she replies, her voice sharper than she intends. The truth is, she's exhausted, and every step feels like an eternity. But she can't afford to rest. Not yet. Not with so much uncertainty hanging over them. She can't trust Kyle. Not completely. Kyle doesn't push the matter, but his gaze lingers on her for a moment, as if weighing something in his mind. There's a flicker of concern in his eyes, something genuine. It makes Lira uncomfortable. She doesn't want his concern. She doesn't want his help. She doesn't need it. And yet she feels a strange pull toward him. They continue walking in silence, the crackle of the dry foliage beneath their feet, the only sound that fills the air. Despite her resistance, Lira begins to wonder, how is Kale so different from the others? Why does he not act like the humans she's always fought against? Every instinct tells her to be wary, to push him away, but something keeps her tethered to him. She doesn't know if it's the desperation of the situation or if deep down she's starting to believe him. As the hours stretch on, the fatigue weighs on her more and more. Her legs ache, her vision blurs, but she forces herself to keep moving. She can't let her guard down. Not yet. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, they reach a small clearing. The ruins of a crashed ship lie ahead, half buried in the overgrowth. The ship is ancient, its markings faded by time and war, but it offers shelter, a place to rest, a chance to gather themselves. Kel moves toward the wreckage without hesitation, as if he's been here before. Lira watches him warily, but there's no malice in his actions. He's not setting a trap. At least she doesn't think so. He turns to her, noticing her hesitation. "This will do for the night. We'll be safe here for a few hours." Safe. The word strikes Lira with an unexpected force. She had forgotten what safety felt like, what it meant to trust in someone or something enough to believe that it could protect her. She's a warrior, a fighter raised in a world where trust is a luxury you can't afford. But here with Kale, an enemy, she feels something else. She feels, for the first time in a long time, a flicker of hope. "Are you sure?" Lira asks, her voice softer now. There's no accusation in her words, just a quiet uncertainty. Cal nods. "I'm sure. Get some rest. I'll keep watch." Lira stares at him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of deception, but all she finds is sincerity, a quiet resolve that matches her own. Despite everything, despite their pasts, they are now forced into this strange, uneasy alliance. They are survivors fighting for a future in a world that has no place for either of them. She nods stiffly, too tired to argue. Slowly, she lowers herself to the ground, her body protesting the movement, but she ignores it. She wraps herself in the tattered remnants of her cloak and stares up at the stars above. They are so far from home, so far from the lives they once knew. And yet in this moment, they are all each other has. The forest of Zura 9 is an alien place. Its vast canopy is tangled and thick, casting everything below into an almost perpetual twilight. The air is humid, thick with the scent of decaying foliage and the sharp tang of ozone from distant storms. The ground beneath their feet shifts with each step, uneven and treacherous, as though the very earth resents their intrusion. Lira's every step is heavy. Her injuries, though treated, still sting, and the fatigue is relentless. Each movement is a struggle, but she forces herself onward, her body moving on instinct more than will. The forest feels alive, the rustling of leaves, an occasional distant howl of unseen predators, a constant reminder of the dangers lurking in the dark corners of the jungle. And yet the most dangerous threat is the one walking beside her. Cal is quiet, his movements swift and sure, leading the way through the thicket with the confidence of someone who has spent years navigating harsh environments. Nira watches him closely, her suspicion lingering, even as she knows she has no choice but to rely on him. The bond between them is strained, fragile at best. Every word exchange feels like a test, and Nira is still unsure which one of them will break first. How much further? Nira asks, her voice strained with exhaustion as she forces herself to keep pace with Kale. Kale doesn't look back immediately, but after a moment he answers, a few more clicks. We'll reach the shelter before nightfall. A few more clicks, Nira mutters more to herself than to him. We've been walking for hours, it feels like days. Kyle chuckles softly, the sound a rare break in the tension that has built between them. It's a fleeting moment of ease, but it catches Nira off guard. She hadn't expected to hear humor in his voice, especially not after the conversation they'd had last night. We're not exactly in a rush to make camp. Kyle replies, his tone light, but not dismissive. It's a forest, not a race. And besides, I'm sure you're more accustomed to moving at your own pace. I'm just trying to keep us alive. Nira shoots him a sidelong glance, her eyes narrowed. I can handle myself just fine. Cal doesn't respond right away. He pauses, then turns slightly to face her, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that catches her off guard. I'm sure you can. But this isn't about pride, Nira. It's about survival. And in this jungle, that means we work together whether you like it or not. His words sting, but Nira doesn't say anything. She has no comeback. She knows he's right. The forest of Zura 9 is a deadly place. The flora here is not just strange, it's dangerous. The thick vines that hang from the trees are capable of ensnaring prey, while the roots snake out from the ground like ancient twisted fingers. It is a place of constant danger, and yet they must push through it, relying on each other to navigate its labyrinthine depths. As they continue their journey, Nira can't help but feel the weight of their tenuous alliance. They are survivors, both of them, but survival means something different to each of them. For Nira, it's a matter of pride, of honor, of maintaining the strength to keep moving forward. For Kyle, it's about redemption. She can see it in the way he moves, the way he speaks, even in the way he looks at her. Like every step, every choice is part of an effort to make things right. Tell me something, Nira says, after a long silence, her voice rough from the exhaustion gnawing at her. She doesn't know why she's asking, but something about the quiet between them feels unnatural. Why are you helping me? Cal pauses again, his eyes flicking to her before he continues forward. You really want to know? Nira's lips curl into a tight smile, but there's no humor in it. I think I deserve an answer. I'm not some noble knight, Cal says a little more sharply than he probably intended. You saved me once. I owe you, that's all. It's as simple as that. Nira doesn't buy it, and she's not afraid to show it. She stops walking, her eyes locking onto his with a fire that belies the exhaustion in her bones. No, there's more to it. Why else would you risk your life for someone like me? Someone who's been trained to kill your kind? Kyle seems to hesitate, as though the words he's about to speak have weight to them. I don't expect you to understand. He begins, slowly choosing his words with care. But I've been where you are, fighting for something I thought was right only to realize it was all a lie. And now I'm just trying to make up for that. I don't expect forgiveness, Nira. I'm not asking for it, but I'm not the same person I was before. Nira listens, her gaze steady on him, though her mind is a whirlwind of thoughts. She doesn't know if she believes him, but there's something in his voice, something raw and vulnerable that she can't ignore. A part of her, no matter how much she tries to push it down, wants to believe him. We don't have time for this, she mutters after a moment, turning back toward the path. We need to keep moving. Cal nods, falling into step beside her. He doesn't press her further, and Nira is thankful for that. The last thing she needs is to confront feelings she's buried deep within herself. They continue on in silence, the forest surrounding them, growing darker as the day wanes. As they reach a particularly dense patch of the jungle, a low, ominous growl cuts through the air. Nira freezes her hand instinctively, reaching for her weapon. Kale is already moving his hand on his sidearm, scanning the shadows around them. Stay close, he murmurs, his voice low. This place is full of predators, and we've probably just walked into their territory. Lira doesn't argue. She moves closer to Kale, her senses heightened, every muscle tensed for the fight she knows is coming. She knows this part of survival well. The enemy here is nature itself, and this forest doesn't care who you are or what side you're on. The growl grows louder, closer. Something large and fast moves through the underbrush. Kyle steps in front of her, his hand gripping his weapon tightly, his eyes scanning for movement. And then, without warning, the creature emerges from the shadows, large, predatory, and terrifying. It's a creature unlike anything Lira has ever seen, a sleek black-furred predator with glowing yellow eyes. It charges toward them with a terrifying speed. Without hesitation, Kale pulls the trigger. The blast echoes in the air, and the creature falters, staggering back with a screech of pain. But it's not enough. The beast roars in fury, its claws swiping at Kyle. Lira reacts instinctively. She lunges forward, drawing her blade with one swift motion, and in a single fluid strike, she cleaves through the creature's throat, bringing it down with a wet thud. Kyle watches, his face unreadable, but his eyes flicker with something: recognition. Respect, she can't tell. That was impressive, Kyle says, his voice a little more than a whisper. Lira wipes the blood from her blade, her chest heaving with the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. I've had to kill worse, she mutters, turning away to continue their trek. Cal falls in behind her, keeping a wary eye on their surroundings. They've both survived this encounter. But survival isn't enough, not anymore. They're still strangers, two enemies bound together by nothing more than necessity. But in this deadly forest, it might be enough. The forest of Zarya 9 is relentless. Every step is a test of endurance, a constant reminder of how unforgiving the world can be. The air grows thicker with each passing hour, as if the very atmosphere conspires to make their survival as difficult as possible. The underbrush clings to their legs, vines and roots reaching out like hidden snares, and the distant sounds of predators echo through the trees, an ever-present warning. Kyle and Lira have become a strange sort of team, though neither of them would admit it out loud. They are an unlikely pair thrust together by fate, driven by necessity. But the longer they remain in the wilderness, the more they begin to rely on each other. It's subtle at first, a glance shared when one senses danger, a hand offered in times of need. But gradually their cooperation becomes more natural, less forced. The morning light filters through the dense canopy, casting long shadows across the ground. They have been moving for hours, taking what little rest they can when the terrain allows. But their progress has been slow. They are both injured, exhausted, but the forest doesn't care about their fatigue. The forest just keeps pressing on, indifferent to their suffering. Lira's hand clenches the hilt of her blade, the familiar weight offering a small comfort amidst the unfamiliar landscape. She scans their surroundings, eyes, sharp, muscles tensed. She knows that Kyle is behind her, moving just as cautiously, his presence a steady reminder of the fragile alliance they've forged. Stay close. Kyle murmurs, his voice barely a whisper against the rustling of the wind. There's a clearing ahead. We'll rest there for a bit. Lira nods without a word. She's grown accustomed to his quiet leadership, though she'd never admit it. She may not trust him entirely, but she can't deny that he knows how to survive in this forest. It's something she begrudgingly respects despite herself. As they reach the clearing, Lira pauses, her senses on high alert. The air smells different here, fresher, but also more dangerous. This is a place where predators hunt, and the ground beneath their feet is soft, disturbed only by the faint traces of animal tracks. It feels like the calm before the storm. We'll set up here, Cal says, crouching down to inspect the area. I'll take first watch. Lira starts to protest, the words caught in her throat, but she's too tired to argue. They've been traveling in the forest for what feels like an eternity, and her body is beginning to betray her. She doesn't want to admit it, but her strength is waning. Her wounds still ache, and every movement is a struggle. Kyle notices her hesitation, his gaze flicking to her face. There's something in his expression, something almost gentle. You need rest, he says, the command in his voice, soft but unmistakable. I'll keep watch. You've earned it. It's the way he says it, with no hint of condescension, that makes Lira stop. She looks at him, searching his face for any sign of trickery, but finds none. His expression is open, sincere. For a moment, she's caught off guard by his honesty. "You're not doing this to gain favor," she mutters, still skeptical. "You don't owe me anything." Kale doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he adjusts his position, checking their surroundings one last time before lowering himself to the ground. "I'm not looking for anything," he says finally, his voice steady. "Just a little peace for a while." Lira stares at him, the quiet honesty of his words striking a chord within her. For all his past, for all the destruction he has caused, Kale is here now standing beside her, not out of obligation, but because he chooses to. And for the first time since their journey began, Lira allows herself to believe him, if only for a moment. As she sinks to the ground beside him, her eyes drift toward the trees, the shadows dancing on the edges of the clearing. Cal watches over her without complaint, his back to her, as he surveys their surroundings. There's a strange comfort in the silence between them, now a peace that wasn't there before. Hours pass in the quiet stillness of the clearing, the sounds of the forest pressing in around them. Lira does her best to relax, though sleep is elusive. Every crackling branch or distant rustle sets her on edge, and she remains alert, her hand resting near the hilt of her blade. She is not used to being so vulnerable, so exposed. Yet with Kale beside her, she finds herself able to lower her guard just a little. It's then that the first sign of trouble emerges. A rustling sound followed by the soft, deliberate thud of something large moving through the brush. Lira's eyes snap open, her senses immediately on high alert. She sees Kale's posture stiffen, his hand already reaching for his weapon. Without a word, they spring into action. Lira's body moves before she even thinks about it, her instincts kicking in as she draws her blade, prepared for whatever is coming. Kale is right beside her, his weapon already raised, scanning the underbrush for the source of the sound. "Stay behind me," Kyle says, his voice low and urgent. But Lira doesn't need to be told twice. She's already positioning herself beside him, her eyes trained on the movement in the trees. The creature, whatever it is, emerges into view, large and powerful, its body covered in thick spiked armor that makes it appear nearly invincible. It's a beast far larger than anything Lira had expected, its eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. But it's not the size of the creature that catches Lira's attention. It's the way Kale reacts. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't freeze or look to Lira for help. Instead, he moves with precision, his hands steady, as he fires a series of shots into the creature's armored hide. The beast roars, staggering back, but it doesn't retreat. It charges. Lira reacts without thought. With a grunt, she meets the creature head on, her blade cutting through the air in a swift arc. The creature snarls as she strikes, her blow landing with a sickening thud. The creature falters but doesn't fall. Cal shifts, moving to flank the creature, his shots more precise, now targeting its vulnerable underbelly. The beast lets out a final guttural roar before collapsing to the ground in a heap, defeated. Lira stands over the creature, her breath coming in heavy pants. For a moment, there's silence between them, no words, just the harsh sounds of their breathing. Cal lowers his weapon and looks at her, his expression unreadable. "Nice work," he says simply. Lira glances at him, her heart pounding. But there's something more in her chest than the adrenaline of the fight. Something warmer. Something like respect. She nods, still breathing heavily. "You too," she says, her voice gruff. But there's a hint of something else there. Something like acknowledgement. They share a moment of understanding, and for the first time since they began this journey together, Lira feels something shift between them. It's not trust, at least not yet, but it's close. Close enough that for the first time she realizes that maybe she doesn't have to carry the weight of survival alone. Cal glances at her once more, a small satisfied smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "We'll keep moving after we rest," he says. "I'll watch your back, Lira. We're in this together now." Lira doesn't respond immediately. She watches him for a moment, considering his words, and then, without thinking, she lets her guard down, if only just a little. "For now," she says quietly, almost to herself. And in that quiet exchange, Lira understands that perhaps they both might have more to learn from each other than they ever imagined. The days in the forest blur together in a haze of exhaustion and survival. They move from one treacherous patch of terrain to another, every step a challenge, every moment fraught with the constant danger of the unknown. But amidst the chaos of the jungle, a fragile bond has begun to form between Lira and Kale. The cracks in their distrust are starting to fill with something resembling understanding and alliance built not on friendship, but on necessity. Kyle's quiet strength, his ability to navigate the jungle with ease, and the way he keeps a watchful eye on Nira's well-being have begun to wear down her resistance. Each act of care, each small gesture of selflessness, chips away at the wall she's built around her heart. She can no longer deny it. Kale is no ordinary human. He is different, more complex than she ever expected. And yet something continues to nag at the back of her mind. She's not fool enough to believe that his past can simply be erased. She's seen the scars of war, felt the weight of betrayal, and knows that people, especially soldiers, carry their histories with them. Kale may have saved her life, but he is not innocent. And she cannot allow herself to forget that. It is late in the day when the truth comes to light as the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing where they've stopped to rest. Nira has been going over everything in her mind, weighing the silence that's grown between them. Kyle, for his part, has been quieter than usual. His focus seems elsewhere, his eyes distant, as if locked on something only he can see. Nira watches him from across the campfire, the crackling flames casting flickering shadows across his face. There's something different about him tonight. Something in the way he's been avoiding her gaze. Something guarded in his posture. She's seen it before in soldiers who've lost something they couldn't afford to give up, in those who carry a burden too heavy to share. Cal, she calls, her voice steady, but laced with an underlying tension. There's something you're not telling me. He doesn't answer immediately, his eyes momentarily flicking to her, before quickly looking away. The silence stretches between them, thick and charged with unspoken words. Nira feels the weight of her own suspicion pressing down on her. She's known for some time that Kyle's past isn't as simple as he's made it seem. She's heard the rumors, seen the glimmers of discomfort in his eyes when the subject of his past is broached. She cannot remain in the dark any longer. I'm done waiting, Kale. She presses her voice sharper now. I need to know the truth. About you. Kale stiffens at the demand, his fingers tightening around the hilt of his weapon, but he doesn't meet her eyes. Instead, he stares into the fire, his expression unreadable. The truth he repeats as if weighing the word in his mind. The truth is, I'm not the person you think I am. Nira takes a step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. I know that she says, her voice low, but her eyes locked on him. But I need to know what you've done, Kyle. What you were part of. You can't keep hiding it. Not from me. There's a long pause before Kale finally looks up at her, his eyes haunted. He seems to search her face for something, perhaps understanding, perhaps judgment. His lips press into a tight line before he speaks again, his voice strained. I wasn't just a soldier, he says quietly. I was part of a group, an organization. We called ourselves the Liberators. It was meant to be a movement, a fight for freedom for the oppressed. But it became something else. Something worse. Nira's stomach twists as she listens, her pulse quickening. The name is not unfamiliar to her. The Liberators. The group that had carried out a series of brutal attacks across multiple planets, including the one she'd been sent to protect. The same group that had orchestrated the attack on her faction. The same group whose bloody actions had torn her people apart. Kale's eyes flicker with a shadow of regret, but he doesn't look away. We were supposed to fight for justice, for those who had no voice. But as the years went by, the lines blurred. We stopped caring who got hurt. We stopped caring about the people we were supposed to be protecting. Nira feels her breath catch in her throat. The weight of his words hits her like a physical blow. She takes a step back, her mind spinning. She had suspected this, but hearing him say it out loud is something else entirely. Her hands ball into fists at her sides, a flare of anger and betrayal surging through her. You were one of them, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. You were part of the attack on my people. Kale doesn't flinch at her accusation. He doesn't try to deny it. Instead, he looks down at the ground, his jaw tightening. Yes, he admits the word heavy with the weight of everything he's done. I was. And I can't undo it. I can't bring back the people we killed. I can't take back the destruction we caused. But I've been trying to change. Every day, every step I take, I try to make up for it. Nira's eyes burn with a mixture of anger and disbelief. She wants to scream, to demand that he explain himself, to tear into him for his involvement in the attack that nearly destroyed everything she held dear. But she stops herself, forcing the words back down. Instead, she looks at him, the silence between them, thick with the weight of his confession. You don't get to ask for forgiveness, Kale, she says, her voice trembling. Not after what you did. Not after what you were part of. Kale meets her gaze, and for the first time, she sees the rawness in his eyes, the regret, the shame that has been buried beneath his actions. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he says quietly. I'm not asking you to forget. I know I can't undo the past, but I'm here. I'm helping you, because it's the only way I can atone. It's the only way I can make things right. Lira stares at him, her heart torn between the anger she feels and the compassion she knows is there, buried deep beneath the surface. The truth has shattered everything she thought she knew about Kale, and yet the man standing before her, broken, remorseful, does not feel like the same person she fought against. She takes a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but it's hard. Every part of her wants to run, to flee from the betrayal, from the fear of what Kale represents. But a part of her, the part that has been listening to his words, to the sincerity in his voice, wants to believe him, wants to believe that there's more to him than the man who fought for a cause that had brought so much destruction. I don't know if I can trust you, Lira says, her voice quieter, now filled with conflict. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you've done, but I'll keep going. I'll keep moving forward, and we'll survive. But know this, Kale, I will never forget what you were part of. For a long time, neither of them speaks. Kale doesn't try to explain himself further. He doesn't offer more apologies. He simply nods, his eyes locked on hers, as if understanding that this is as far as he can go. And in that moment, Lira knows that their bond, what little of it remains, has changed. It is no longer built on trust alone, but on the understanding that sometimes survival is all they have. And in this world, that might be enough. The air between Lira and Kale has grown heavy, laden with the truth that now hangs between them like a shadow. Every step they take through the forest feels different, as though the ground beneath them is shifting in response to the words they've exchanged. Lira can't shake the weight of Kale's confession, the truth of his involvement in the destruction of her people, and the horrible realization that he had been a part of the force that killed her comrades. She knew that one day something like this would come, but the reality of it is so much harder to process. They walk in silence for hours, each step in the dense underbrush, echoing the questions that churn in Lira's mind. She's tried to push the thoughts away, tried to ignore the part of her that still feels the pull of something resembling trust for Kale. But the anger is there too, simmering beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the betrayal she's been forced to confront. Kyle, for his part, doesn't speak. He's quiet, almost withdrawn, but Lira can feel his tension, can sense the guilt that weighs him down. He's trying, she knows that. But can anyone truly change? Can someone like Kyle, who's been part of the destruction, part of the death, be redeemed? Can she forgive him? Her heart says no. But something inside her, the part that's been watching him, observing the small gestures of kindness, the moments when he's shown her nothing but care, whispers that perhaps there's a chance for him. She doesn't want to believe it, but she can't ignore it. When they stop to rest later that night, the fire crackles between them, its warmth offering a strange comfort in the otherwise cold, dark forest. Lira sits across from Kyle, her eyes fixed on the flames, unable to meet his gaze. The tension between them is unbearable. She knows she needs to ask the questions that have been gnawing at her, but something stops her. Maybe it's fear. Fear that the answers will change everything, that the final piece of the puzzle will ruin whatever fragile bond they've formed. You never told me the whole story, Cal, she says, finally breaking the silence. Her voice is quiet but firm, the words heavy in the air between them. Kyle looks up, his eyes darkened by the firelight, but his expression unreadable. He knows what she means. What do you want to know? He asks, his voice low. Lira's eyes narrow, her hand tightening around the hilt of her blade. She's not sure what she's expecting, but her heart is racing as she speaks. The liberators. What were they really after? You said you fought for freedom, for justice. But I've seen the carnage. I've seen the destruction. And I don't buy it, Kale. Not anymore. There's a long pause. Kyle looks away, staring into the flames for a moment, before sighing deeply. When he speaks again, his voice is heavy burdened. The truth is, we started with good intentions. We were going to free the oppressed, stop the wars that ravaged the galaxy. But as the years went on, it became less about justice and more about power, about control. We were manipulated just like the people we were fighting against. It wasn't about freedom anymore. It was about domination. Nira's stomach twists as the realization sets in. She had known the truth in the back of her mind, but hearing it from him, hearing the regret in his voice makes it real. So you were just a pawn, a soldier fighting for a cause that was never yours to fight for. Her voice is bitter now, a harsh laugh escaping her lips. Is that what you're telling me? That you didn't know what you were doing? Cal's gaze snaps back to her, the hurt evident in his eyes. I didn't know, Nira. I didn't know what they were turning into. And by the time I realized it was too late, I was already in too deep. He clenches his fists, his voice growing more strained. You think I don't regret it? You think I don't hate myself for what I've done? For the people we killed, I'll never be able to make up for that. But I'm trying. I'm here with you, risking my life because I need to do something right for once. Nira's chest tightens. Her heart wavers between the hatred she feels for him and the understanding that lingers despite herself. She knows betrayal when she sees it. She's felt it herself countless times in battle when comrades fall away or abandon their duty. But Kale, he's different. He's not like the others. He's not just a soldier anymore. He's a man caught between two worlds, the one he fought for and the one he wants to redeem himself in. You're asking me to trust you again, she says, her voice trembling. After everything, after you were part of the group that destroyed my people, my squad, my home. Kyle's eyes drop, his guilt consuming him. He opens his mouth, but no words come. It's as if he knows that nothing he can say will undo what he's done. There's no magic phrase, no apology, no redemption that can reverse the pain, the loss that she suffered. But still he tries. I'm sorry, he finally says, the words simple, but so heavy. I wish I could take it all back. I can't, but I'm sorry. Nira's eyes sting, and for a moment she's caught between the urge to lash out, to scream, to let him know just how deeply his betrayal has hurt her, and the recognition that maybe he's not the enemy she once believed him to be. Maybe he's not the villain in this story, but that doesn't make what he did right. That's not enough, Kale, she whispers. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what you want me to say, but the truth is, She stops herself, taking a deep breath, trying to steady her heart. I can't forgive you for this. I can't. There's a quiet moment as Kale absorbs her words, and Nira watches the fire, her chest tight with a storm of conflicting emotions. For so long, she thought survival was about fighting, about winning the battle. But now it feels like survival is about something else, choosing whether to trust or to live with the weight of betrayal. When Cal speaks again, his voice is softer, almost resigned. I don't need you to forgive me, Nira. I don't deserve it. But I need you to understand I didn't do it for myself. I didn't do it to hurt you. I did it because I believed in something that wasn't real. And now I'm just trying to fix the damage I've done. Nira doesn't reply. She can't. Instead, she stands up, moving away from the fire to the edge of the clearing. The distance between them is growing, but so is the gap between what she's learned and what she feels. The air is cooler here, the tension in her chest almost suffocating. For the first time since they started this journey, Nira realizes that the path ahead won't be so simple. Kyle's past has changed everything, but it hasn't changed her will to survive. They'll have to face each other again, face their choices, face the very betrayal that binds them. But for now, there's only the sound of the forest around them and the quiet, unspoken acknowledgement that survival might be their only common ground. The night is heavy with the weight of words left unsaid. The forest around them hums with an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of unseen creatures. Nira's mind is a whirlwind torn between anger, disbelief, and something she can't quite name, something she's reluctant to acknowledge, let alone confront. Kale's confession had cut deep, slicing through the fragile veneer of trust they had begun to build. He is not the man she thought he was. He's a soldier, a pawn in a game of destruction, no different from the enemies she's fought against for years. And yet, there is something in the way he carries his guilt, something raw and unshielded that makes her hesitate. She cannot afford to feel pity for him, not when he was part of the group that nearly destroyed her people. But pity lingers unbidden and unwelcome. Kale had confessed the truth, his words heavy with regret, his eyes darkened with the shame of his past. He had been part of the attack on her faction, a willing participant in the violence, the bloodshed. But now in the quiet aftermath of their conversation, he is different. He is no longer the detached soldier she thought him to be. He is a man broken by his own choices, haunted by the destruction he caused. Lira can't stop thinking about his words. I did it because I believed in something that wasn't real. He had said that, and it echoed in her mind. The words repeated, tumbling over each other like the crash of waves against a rocky shore. What if he's telling the truth? What if, despite the past, Kale really does want to change? Can someone like him ever be redeemed? And more importantly, can she, someone who has been shaped by a lifetime of war and betrayal, ever forgive him? She stands by the fire, the flames flickering as they dance in the cool night air. Her fingers twitch by her side, restless, unsure of what to do next. She wants to ask more, to demand answers, but part of her, something deep inside her, doesn't want to hear them. She doesn't want to understand. It's easier to hate. It's easier to hold on to the anger, to use it as armor against the confusion and vulnerability that threatens to surface. Behind her, Kyle shifts, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he's aware of the storm brewing in her mind. His voice breaks the silence, soft and uncertain. You're right, you know. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve anything but your hatred. But I can't keep running from what I did. I can't pretend it didn't happen. Lira turns to face him, her eyes locking on to his, searching for the man she's been traveling with, the man who has helped her when no one else would. She expects to find something, anything that confirms the coldness she's always believed in him. But instead she finds only rawness, only vulnerability. His eyes are open, stripped of the usual guardedness, and for the first time Lira sees him as he truly is, broken, yes, but also human. He looks at her with the quiet plea of someone who has been carrying a burden too heavy to bear alone. I never wanted to hurt anyone, Kyle continues, his voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted to be part of something so wrong. I was young, naive. I thought I was doing the right thing, fighting for something greater than myself. But I didn't realize what it would cost. I didn't understand what I was doing until it was too late. Lira's heart tightens at his words, the weight of his regret settling on her chest like an anchor. She opens her mouth to speak, but no words come. What is there to say? What can she say to someone who has shattered everything she's believed about him? And yet in this moment she can see the sincerity in his eyes. Is it possible that he really doesn't want to be the person he once was? She takes a step closer, her mind at war with itself. You don't get to ask for forgiveness, she says, her voice trembling, but her words are quiet, almost gentler than she intends. Not from me, not from anyone. What you did, it was unforgivable. There's no way to take back the destruction, the lives lost. Her eyes flicker to the ground as though the weight of her words can anchor her to something solid, something real. But you've been trying, haven't you? Kyle looks down, his face shadowed in the dim firelight. I don't deserve a second chance. I know that. But I'm still trying. Every day. And I know it's not enough. I know I can't fix everything. But I can't live with what I've done forever. I won't. Lira's quiet for a long moment, the conflict within her raging. The anger is still there, sharp, undeniable, but so is the understanding. And with that understanding comes a terrifying question. Can she forgive him? Is it possible to let go of the hatred, the betrayal, and move forward? She wants to say something, anything, to push him away, to hold on to the anger that has been her shield for so long. But in the stillness of the night, amidst the wreckage of her own beliefs, she finds herself unable to do it. She can't deny that Kale's vulnerability has forced her to question her own convictions, her own capacity for forgiveness. I'm not sure I can forgive you, Kale. Lira says, her voice hoarse, the words difficult to shape. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm trying. I'm trying to understand. That has to count for something. Kale doesn't say anything at first, his shoulders sagging with what could be relief, or perhaps a deeper, more painful resignation. It's more than I deserve, he says quietly, but it's all I can ask for. Lira looks at him, her heart a tangle of conflicting emotions. She feels the weight of the moment, the enormity of the choice she's faced with. To forgive or not to forgive, to move forward or to hold on to the past and let it define her. It is a choice that is as difficult as it is necessary. And for the first time since they began this journey together, Lira realizes that survival isn't just about defeating the enemy. It's about learning to live with the consequences of everything that's come before. For the first time, she doesn't have the answers. But maybe that's okay. I'm not going to forget what you did, she says softly, her voice more calm than she expected. But I'll give you a chance to prove that you're not the man you were. Cal nods, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. Thank you. Lira turns away, her thoughts a tangled mess, her heart still wrestling with the weight of his confession. They've come a long way further than either of them could have imagined when they first met. But the road ahead is still uncertain. The path of redemption is long, and Cale's journey has only just begun. For now, that's all Lira can give him, the chance to prove that he can change, that he can be more than his past. Whether that leads to forgiveness or something else entirely, she doesn't know. But for now, she's willing to try. The forest is a quiet prison, its trees towering like silent witnesses to the tension between Lira and Cal. They have made their way through the thick underbrush for days now, each hour bringing them closer to the abandoned human base Cal had mentioned days ago. The idea of resting in an enclosed, secured space is a welcome thought, especially with the dangers of the jungle constantly at their backs. But even as they draw closer to their destination, Lira can't shake the unease that has settled in her chest. Despite Cale's attempts to guide them safely through the jungle, there is a palpable distance between them, one that stretches back to the harsh confrontation over Cale's past. She's tried to push it aside, tried to focus on survival, but the weight of his confession still lingers in the air between them, as thick and suffocating as the humid jungle itself. It's not that she's forgiving him, not yet, not when the memories of her fallen comrades are still so fresh, but the notion of reconciliation is becoming a little less foreign, a little less impossible. Still, doubts gnaw at her. Every time Cale glances at her, every time he offers a word of encouragement, she wonders if he's truly changed. Can a man like him ever be redeemed? Or is he just a liar, an enemy wearing the mask of remorse? We're close, Cal murmurs, breaking her thoughts as they approach the edge of the dense forest. Lira nods, though her thoughts remain clouded. How much farther, she asks, her voice not betraying the uncertainty she feels. Cale pauses for a moment to assess the terrain ahead. Not far, just a few more minutes. We should be there by nightfall. The promise of shelter, even temporary, sparks something in Lira. She has been constantly on the move, fighting against the wilderness, the threats, and her own fractured thoughts. The prospect of rest, even if it's only brief, is something she can't help but welcome. They've both been running for too long, and the thought of stopping, if only for a while, feels like a small luxury she's not sure she deserves. As they push forward, the forest begins to thin out. The sound of distant engines hums through the air, low and mechanical. A structure appears through the trees, a large crumbling base, its walls shattered by time and neglect. What was once a human research station now sits in disrepair, the rusting skeleton of an old outpost abandoned long ago. Lira's gaze shifts over the ruins. The place is quiet, almost too quiet, but the faint hum of power still seems to pulse within it. There's something eerie about the idea of a place so seemingly forgotten. Still, it's a place of relative safety. For now, that has to be enough. Kel moves toward the base with a sense of purpose, the familiarity of the place evident in his movements. Lira, though, remains more cautious, her eyes darting over every broken beam and twisted piece of metal. She has learned not to trust appearances, especially when survival is at stake. The systems are still operational, Kyle says as he enters the main building, his voice a little lighter now that they've reached their destination. We should be able to get power back on and lock down the perimeter. It'll give us a few hours of safety. Lira follows him inside, her senses sharp as she surveys the space. The interior is dark, with only the faintest traces of light filtering through the cracked windows. The hum of the electrical system is still present, but it feels like a place left in the past, a ghost of whatever purpose it once served. It doesn't look like anyone's been here in years, Lira comments as she steps into the center of the room, her eyes scanning the debris. Kale nods, a wisp of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. That's because there hasn't been. This place was abandoned after the war started. The humans decided it wasn't worth holding anymore, so they left it behind. Not exactly a strategic location, but it should suffice for now. Lira surveys the room once more. It feels strangely hollow, and in the silence she can almost hear the ghosts of past inhabitants, the echoes of the lives once lived within these walls. She takes a deep breath, pushing aside the memories that begin to resurface. The battles, the loss, the countless faces she'll never see again. Her comrades, her squad. Kyle moves to a terminal on the far wall, typing in commands quickly, his movements efficient. The lights flicker on overhead, casting a sterile glow across the room. It's not much, Kyle says, glancing over at her as he powers up the console. But it'll do. At least we can get some rest. Lira doesn't respond right away. She's still thinking about what Kyle said about the truth of his past and how it's changed everything. She wants to believe he's telling the truth, that he's sincere in his regret. But the pain of betrayal is hard to forget, hard to ignore. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She asked, her voice low, a sharp edge to her words. Cal's fingers pause over the terminal and he turns to face her, the flickering light catching the exhaustion in his eyes. I didn't know how, he admits. I didn't know how to make you understand. How could I explain it? How could I explain the things I did? The things I allowed to happen? It felt like the words were too small to matter. Lira holds his gaze for a moment, the question lingering in her chest, but she doesn't have an answer. She doesn't know why he waited, why he kept his past buried for so long. Perhaps he too was afraid of the consequences of the truth, afraid of what it might cost him. I understand, she says, surprising even herself with the softness in her voice. But it doesn't change the past. It doesn't change what you were part of. Kale nods, his gaze heavy with regret. I know, but I'm here now. I'm trying to change. I'm trying to make it right. The words linger in the air, both too simple and too complicated all at once. Lira turns away, her heart heavy with confusion. It's not the answer she wants, not the answer that will solve the mess of emotions swirling within her, but it's all she can give him. She moves to the far side of the room, settling down against the wall with a deep breath. Kel follows her lead, settling down opposite her, his back against the cold metal of the base. For a long time, neither speaks. The only sound is the hum of the station, the quiet buzz of electrical power. But even in the silence, there's a shift between them. It's not forgiveness, not yet. But there is something else, a fragile, tentative understanding that maybe, just maybe, they can survive this together. The journey ahead is uncertain, the danger's still out there in the night. But for the first time, Lira feels like there's a glimmer of something more, a possibility, however faint, that they might just make it through. The walls of the abandoned base feel too close, the silence oppressive, as Lira rests her back against the cold metal. The hum of the power system seems to echo through the empty halls, reminding her that they are still alive, still fighting. But the peace of the moment is fragile, built on shaky foundations, trust that has not yet been earned, loyalty that has yet to be fully tested. Kyle is sitting across the room, his posture still tense, despite the relative safety of their temporary refuge. The flickering lights cast long shadows over his face, deepening the lines of exhaustion and regret. Lira can feel the weight of his gaze on her, but she doesn't meet it. She's not ready to face him fully, not yet. There's something about the way he's changed since their arrival at the base. Something quieter, more subdued, as though he's waiting for something, an answer, an acknowledgement, a sign that she's willing to let him prove himself. But Lira isn't ready for that. She's not ready to trust him, not fully, not yet. The crackle of static from an old radio on the console breaks the silence, pulling Lira from her thoughts. She watches as Kale rises, his eyes flicking to the console. The communication device is still functional, its ancient circuitry buzzing to life as it picks up a faint signal. He steps forward, his hand hovering over the controls, and for a moment Lira feels the familiar surge of suspicion rise again. What is he doing? Is he reaching out to his old comrades? A part of her wants to ask, wants to demand that he explain himself, but she knows better. The anger is still there, but something else is beginning to gnaw at her, a deep, unsettling sense of doubt. We should check it, Kale says, his voice calm, but there's a hint of something else beneath the surface. A tension that makes Lira pause. She watches him carefully as he adjusts the radio's frequency, the static cutting out as a voice breaks through the noise. This is Captain Ralston of the New Horizon. Do you copy, over? Lira's heart skips a beat. The voice is familiar. She's heard it before, but it wasn't a voice she ever expected to hear again. The New Horizon, the human vessel that had once been part of Kale's faction. It's a voice from the past, a reminder of everything that she's trying to move beyond. For a moment, Lira just stares at Kale, her eyes wide, her mind racing. How long had he been in contact with them? How long had he kept this hidden from her? Kyle's eyes flicker to her, noticing the tension that suddenly wrapped itself around her body. His fingers hover over the radio controls, uncertain. Lira, wait. But Lira doesn't wait. She stands abruptly, the cold realization creeping over her like a chill. She moves toward him, her voice low but sharp with accusation. You've been talking to them. To your people. Haven't you? Kale's face pales, his eyes locking onto hers with a silent plea for understanding. It's not what you think. Then what is it? Lira snaps. You said you were done with them. You said you were trying to make things right. And now you're talking to them, your comrades, the ones who did this. Her voice cracks as the words tumble out, her anger boiling over. Why now? Why after everything? Kale swallows hard, taking a step toward her. But she steps back, her gaze unwavering. Lira, listen to me. I didn't contact them because I want to go back to that life. I didn't reach out to them for any of the reasons you're thinking. It's because they might be able to help us. They might be able to offer us an escape, get us out of here. Escape? Lira laughs bitterly, the sound hollow and cruel in the silence of the base. You think that after everything you can just walk away from that? From them, from what you've done? Kale's jaw tightens, but he doesn't look away. I'm not asking for redemption. I'm asking for help. We're stuck here, Lira. We're not safe. And if there's even a chance that the New Horizon can help us get out of this hellhole, I need to take it. Lira's chest tightens as the weight of his words sinks in. She knows he's right, at least partly. They're stranded alone in a broken world with little more than the tools to survive. But the idea of reaching out to the very people who betrayed her, the ones who caused the destruction of her faction, feels like a betrayal in itself. It feels like she's being pulled into a web she can't escape, and she doesn't know if she's ready to face it. You can't trust them, Lira says, her voice quiet now, as if the fight has been drained from her. You can't trust any of them. They're the ones who destroyed everything. They're the ones who betrayed me. You can't go back to them. You can't. Kyle's eyes soften, but there's a sadness in them that she's not used to seeing. I know, Lira. I can't undo what I've done. I can't change the past. But all I'm asking for is a chance to make it right, to fix whatever I can for both of us. Lira looks away, the weight of his words pressing down on her chest. She doesn't know how to respond. There's a part of her that wants to walk away, to shut him out, to turn her back on everything he represents. But there's something else, a flicker of the bond they've begun to form, something that tells her she doesn't want to face this alone. The silence between them stretches on thick and heavy. Lira's mind is torn between the past she can't let go of and the uncertain future that Kale offers. She doesn't want to forgive him, not yet, but she can't deny the truth that he's not the man he once was. He's changed, even if he doesn't have the power to change everything. Okay, she says finally, her voice quiet but resolute. We'll talk to them, but only to find a way out. No more games, Kale. If you're serious about this, then show me. Show me you're not the same man you were. Kyle nods slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. I will. I swear it, Lira. I'll prove it to you. Lira stands still for a moment, feeling the enormity of the decision they've just made. The past is a heavyweight one that neither of them can outrun, but the future is still uncertain. Maybe, just maybe, they can find a way to survive it together. But for now, they both know they're walking a dangerous line, testing the boundaries of loyalty, trust, and redemption. And whether or not they can cross that line will determine what comes next. The days blur together, and the world outside the abandoned base feels even more distant as the darkness settles in both literal and metaphorical. The New Horizons message echoes in Lira's mind, a constant hum she cannot escape. Kale's plea to contact his old comrades lingers, and though she agreed to help him, doubts cloud every thought she has. She can't shake the feeling that this decision, reaching out to the people who had caused so much pain, might be their greatest mistake. Still, for now, survival is the focus. For all their distrust, for all the cracks in their fragile alliance, Lira knows that Kale is right. The base might offer a brief respite, but it's not a permanent solution. They still have no way out of this war-ravaged world, no way to return to what's left of their lives. They need to survive, and for the moment that means relying on each other. Kale, despite everything, has proven to be a capable ally. He's resourceful, his quick thinking often saving them from dangers they might have overlooked. The small acts of selflessness, the way he shares his rations without hesitation, the way he keeps watch over her when she sleeps, continue to erode the walls she's built around her heart, but she's not ready to admit it. Not yet. For now, Lira keeps herself busy, checking the old systems, assessing their supplies, and ensuring the base is as secure as possible. But every so often, when Kale speaks, when his voice carries a note of genuine care, she catches herself listening for something more than what's on the surface. She's not sure what she's looking for. Forgiveness, redemption, or perhaps just a sign that in the end, they can both move past their past. One evening as they sit around the fire inside the base, Lira notices something different about Kale. There's a weariness in his eyes, a quiet resignation. He's staring into the flames, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing the outline of his weapon. It's a simple gesture, but there's something about it that catches her attention. "You okay?" Lira asks, breaking the silence. Kyle blinks, surprised by the question. He shifts slightly, looking over at her. "I'm fine. Just thinking." About what? Lira presses her voice, soft but insistent. She's still not sure if she can trust him fully, but she can't deny the curiosity that lingers. Cal hesitates as if weighing whether or not to speak. Finally, he lets out a slow breath. "About everything. About the past. About how it all went so wrong. I've been a part of so many fights, so many wars, and I thought it was all for something. But in the end, it just destroyed everything. My people, your people, I've destroyed lives, Lira." The words are raw, painful, and for a moment Lira sees the man beneath the soldier, the man who has been carrying this burden for so long. She's heard him speak of regret before, but now it's different. Now she can see it in the way his shoulders slump, in the way his voice trembles just slightly. "I didn't think it would come to this. I didn't think I'd be sitting here in a place like this talking to you after everything that's happened." Kale continues, his voice thick with emotion. "I thought I was doing the right thing back then, but I was wrong, and now I have to live with that." Lira doesn't respond right away. She watches him carefully, searching for any sign of deception, any hint that this is just another attempt to manipulate her, but she doesn't find it. There's no bitterness in his words and no self-pity. There's only the quiet pain of someone who has lost everything. The realization hits her harder than she expected. Kyle isn't just apologizing for the past. He's trying to make something of the future, and he's asking her in his own quiet way to let him. She takes a deep breath, her heart heavy with the weight of her own thoughts. "You can't change the past," she says finally, her voice steady. "You can't undo what you've done. I can't forgive you yet, Kale, but I'll keep moving forward with you if that's what you want." Kel looks up at her, and for a moment their eyes meet, the distance between them shrinking just slightly. There's no rush, no grand gesture, just the quiet understanding that despite everything they are still here, together. "Thank you," Cal whispers, his voice barely audible. "That's all I can ask for." The moment passes, but it lingers, unspoken but understood. For the first time, Lira realizes that survival isn't just about making it through each day. It's about the choices they make, the small acts of trust that define the path ahead. And though their future remains uncertain, they both know that they can't keep running from their past forever. The next few days are a blur of motion, Cal continuing his work on the base's systems, while Lira trains her mind to focus solely on the present. They take turns sleeping, though neither of them truly rests. The weight of the past hangs over them, but they've learned to carry it. For now, that's enough. It's during one of these nights, as they sit together, their backs to the wall of the abandoned station, that they hear the faintest of sounds, a distant rumble in the distance, followed by the faint crackling of static over the radio. Kyle's hand moves to the console, and Lira watches as his fingers fly over the controls, his brow furrowing in concentration. The static clears, replaced by a familiar voice. "Captain Ralston from the New Horizon. We've received your signal. Are you still there? Over." Cal glances at Lira, his expression unreadable. For a moment, everything freezes. Lira feels the weight of the moment, her chest tightening with apprehension. She knows what this means. The New Horizon has answered. The people Kyle once fought for, the ones who betrayed her, are now reaching out. Do you trust them? She asks, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. Kyle pauses, his hand hovering over the receiver. I don't know, he admits quietly. But they're our only chance. And I won't waste it. Lira nods slowly, her heart torn between the survival instinct that screams for them to act and the part of her that wants to walk away from it all, leave this behind, and survive on their own terms. But in the end, they both know there is no such thing as escaping the past. It will always catch up with them. We'll see what they want, Lira says, her voice firm. As Kale responds to the transmission, Lira takes a deep breath, the future stretching out before them, uncertain, dangerous, but with a sliver of hope. Whatever happens next, they will face it together. The air around them crackles with a tension that is almost palpable. The hum of the communications console providing a soft backdrop to the uncertainty that weighs heavily on Lira's chest. As Kale speaks with Captain Ralston over the radio, Lira tries to focus, tries to concentrate on the cold, metallic walls of the abandoned base. But all she can feel is the heavy presence of the past, the lives lost, the betrayal, and the ever-present question, is survival worth this? Kale's voice is steady as he speaks into the radio, his words measured calm, as if this was just another conversation, just another day. But Lira knows better. She can see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands hover over the controls, as if he's trying to will himself to do the right thing. And in that moment, she realizes that this conversation, this moment, might just define everything that comes after. What do they want? Lira asks quietly, her voice steady, despite the turmoil churning inside her. Kale turns away from the radio, his face a mixture of guarded emotion and unreadable resolve. They want to meet. They want to talk. They want to offer help, supplies, transport off this planet. The words hang in the air between them, and Lira feels a strange flutter of uncertainty in her stomach. Supplies, escape. The New Horizon is offering them a way out, a chance to leave Zora 9 behind and return to whatever life they had before. But the cost of accepting that offer seems too high. You can't seriously be considering it, she says, her voice rising slightly in disbelief. After everything that's happened, everything you've told me, you're actually thinking about going back to them. Kale's eyes meet hers, and for the first time, Lira sees something soft in his gaze, something almost vulnerable. There's no defensiveness, no anger, just the quiet weight of the decision that hangs between them. I don't know what I'm doing, Lira. He admits, his voice quiet but sincere. But I can't let us die here. I can't let us keep running without a plan. I can't do that to you. To us. The words hit her harder than she expects. She feels a strange pang in her chest, something she hasn't allowed herself to feel in so long, something close to empathy but deeper, something like understanding. For a moment, Lira is lost in the simplicity of his confession, the desire to survive, the need for something more than just survival, something real, something hopeful. It's something she's been too afraid to admit to herself. I don't know if I can forgive them, Lira says, her voice breaking slightly as the weight of the past resurfaces, threatening to consume her. I don't know if I can trust you to make this right, to make any of this right. Kyle looks at her, and in his eyes there's no anger, no resistance, just an openness, a willingness to be vulnerable in a way Lira never expected. He steps closer, the distance between them now only a few feet, but it feels like miles. Still, he doesn't reach out to her. He doesn't push. He simply stands there, letting her words hang in the air, letting her process. You don't have to forgive me, Kale says, his voice low but steady. You don't have to trust me yet. I don't expect you to. But if you'll let me, I'll prove to you that I'm not that man anymore. I'm trying, and I need you to give me a chance. Just one. His words are so simple, so earnest, that they strike her in a way she can't explain. She's been so focused on survival, on keeping her walls high, and her heart closed off, that she never realized how much she was denying herself, denying them both the chance to heal, to move forward. I don't know if I can. Lira whispers more to herself than to him. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore. Kale doesn't answer right away. Instead, he just nods, his gaze shifting toward the radio console, as if to ground himself in something practical, something real. I get it, he says quietly. I'm asking a lot, I know, but I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm just asking you to let me prove that I can be something better. Lira turns away slightly, her eyes closing, as she battles with the conflicting emotions swirling inside her. She's never been one to let her guard down, not after everything she's lost, not after the battles she's fought. But Kale's vulnerability, his willingness to be open with her, to admit that he's broken, forces her to look inward to face the parts of herself she's kept buried for so long. For a moment, she considers turning away, leaving the base, leaving him behind. She could do it, walk away from everything, leave this war behind. But something stops her. Something in Kale's voice and his gaze tells her that he's not the same man who walked into her life that day. He's trying, and for the first time in a long time, Lira wonders if there's something worth believing in. Not just for her, but for both of them. We'll talk to them, Lira says finally, her voice quiet but resolute. But we're doing this on our terms, Kale. We're not going to be anyone's pawns. If they can help us survive, then we'll accept their help. But we're not trusting them completely. Not yet. Kyle looks at her, and for a brief moment his face softens, the guarded expression lifting as he nods. I wouldn't have it any other way. Lira stands still, feeling the weight of the decision they've just made. It's not forgiveness. It's not trust. It's just survival. But for the first time in a long while, Lira feels like she's moving towards something. Even if it's uncertain, even if it's dangerous, it's a step forward, a step toward finding a new way to survive, not just in the physical sense, but emotionally as well. As the night wears on and they prepare for the communication with the new horizon, Lira finds herself not feeling anger or betrayal, but something else, something like hope, or the flicker of it dancing at the edges of her heart. And for the first time since they started this journey, she allows herself to think that maybe they might have a chance. The quiet before the storm is thick with anticipation, the stillness of the base a stark contrast to the chaos that Lira can feel building inside her. The flickering lights overhead are a constant reminder of the uncertainty that surrounds them. Kale has already reached out to the new horizon, and the response is inevitable. An opportunity to leave this planet behind, to escape the war-torn chaos of Zura 9. But at what cost? What will the new horizon want from them in exchange for their help? The radio crackles to life again, a low hum that fills the room and vibrates against Lira's chest. She takes a slow breath, steadying herself for what's to come. This is it. The moment they've been waiting for, the moment that will decide everything. Kale stands across the room, his back to Lira, as he adjusts the dials on the radio, his fingers precise, his focus unwavering. Lira feels a knot tighten in her stomach. She has made her decision. She's agreed to speak with the new horizon to see what they can offer. But the fear in her heart isn't one of uncertainty about their future. It's the fear of what happens next. Kyle's past, his confession, everything that she's allowed herself to believe is now wrapped up in this moment. And even though they have both admitted the truth of their situations, the truth of their need to survive, Lira can't shake the nagging feeling that this conversation, this meeting could end in disaster. One wrong word, one misstep, and they could both be swallowed whole by the ghosts of their past. This is Captain Ralston of the New Horizon. Do you copy over? The voice that comes through the static is familiar, gruff, and authoritative. Lira's heart skips a beat. She's heard this voice before, but now it feels like a distant echo of a past she's desperately trying to escape. The New Horizon, once a symbol of order, now feels like an ominous reminder of everything Kale once fought for. The betrayal, the bloodshed, the lives destroyed. We copy, Kale replies, his voice calm, steady. This is Kale. I've received your message. I'm here with Lira. We're ready to discuss terms. Lira feels the tension in the air grow heavier, her hand instinctively going to the hilt of her blade, though she knows it's an empty gesture. There's no immediate threat. Not yet. But something about the situation feels like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Kale is standing beside her, but he might as well be miles away. There's no easy way to bridge the distance between them, not when everything that has come before hangs over them like a dark cloud. The voice from the New Horizon crackles again, louder this time, a sense of authority and command behind it. Kyle, we've received your coordinates. We'll be there in a few hours. Prepare yourselves. We need to speak in person. Nira's eyes narrow. There's a chill in the voice, something cold and calculated. In person, she repeats her voice low. What does that mean? Kyle's gaze flickers to her for a moment, his eyes unreadable. It means they want us to meet face to face. It means we're walking into their hands. The weight of his words hits her harder than she expected. They are walking into their enemy's grasp. There's no guarantee that the New Horizon will hold up their end of the bargain. No guarantee that they won't try to turn this into another game of manipulation and control. Nira knows the stakes. She knows the danger. And yet in this moment, she finds herself wondering whether she's truly ready for what's to come. What if they don't want to help us, she asks quietly. What if this is a trap? Kale's expression darkens, and for a moment she sees the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He takes a deep breath, running a hand through his hair, as if trying to shake off the heaviness that settled in the air. It's possible, but right now it's the only shot we've got. We don't have any other options. Nira's gaze shifts away from Kale, her eyes lingering on the flickering lights of the base, her mind racing. It's true, they don't have any other options. But it's hard to swallow hard to accept the reality of putting their fate in the hands of those who once made her enemy. And Kale, the man she's been traveling with, the man whose past haunts him, is caught in this web as much as she is. We'll go, Nira says after a moment, her voice firm despite the uncertainty she feels. But we're not going in blind. We need to be ready for anything, for whatever comes next. Kale looks at her, his eyes searching her face as if trying to read her thoughts. You're not worried about them. Of course I am, Nira replies, her voice steady. But I'm more worried about us. About what happens when we trust the wrong people. The radio crackles again, breaking the tension. We'll be there soon. Prepare yourselves. Nira doesn't reply. She can't. The words hang in the air like a storm cloud, too heavy to move, too volatile to ignore. And as the transmission cuts off, she realizes that this is it. The moment they've been preparing for, whether they were ready or not. We move out in 30 minutes, Nira says, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. Stay sharp. Cal nods, his jaw clenched, but there's something in his eyes now, something that's different. She doesn't know if it's determination or fear, but it's there, and she knows it's the same thing she's feeling. They stand together in the quiet of the base, knowing that everything they've been running from, their pasts, their choices, their betrayals, will soon catch up to them. The world outside is waiting, and whether they're ready or not, they'll have to face whatever comes next. Nira takes one last look at Kyle, her heart heavy with the weight of the journey ahead. She doesn't know what will happen when they meet the New Horizon, but she knows one thing for sure: they can't go back to the way things were. Not now. Not after everything. For better or worse, this is their fight, and they'll face it together. The wind howls outside the abandoned base, the distant rumble of a storm rolling across the planet. Inside, Nira and Kyle stand ready, the weight of their choices hanging heavy between them. The communication from the New Horizon still rings in Nira's ears, the promise of assistance tinged with the uncertainty of what they might be walking into. She stands in front of the console, scanning the dim room, her thoughts racing. Kale's eyes are focused on the door, his posture tense as if preparing himself for what's to come. Despite the resolve in his stance, there's an air of discomfort about him. His mind, like hers, is caught between the desperate need for survival and the treacherous reality of trusting the very people who once led him down a dark path. Nira can feel the tension between them, thicker than it's ever been. It's not just the looming encounter with the New Horizon. It's the weight of the history they've built together, the baggage of Kale's past, the unspoken doubts that linger like smoke in the air. Do you think they'll keep their word? Nira asks, breaking the silence that has settled like a heavy fog around them. Kyle turns to face her, his expression guarded but weary. I can't say for sure, but if they do, it's our best chance. We can't stay here forever. Nira nods, though she doesn't feel any more convinced. The thought of placing their trust in the New Horizon, the very group that had orchestrated her people's destruction, sends a chill through her chest. But she knows Kale is right. They need to take this chance. No matter how much she distrusts the past, it's the only way forward. They gather their few remaining supplies, packing what little they have left. Nira's fingers linger over the weapons they've scavenged, checking them once more. She might not trust Kale's old comrades, but she knows one thing: survival depends on their preparation. And if things go sideways, she'll need to be ready. Are you ready? Kyle asks, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. Nira meets his gaze, her eyes steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within her. She's not ready, not by any stretch of the imagination, but what other choice do they have? To walk away now would mean certain death. They've come this far, together, and it's the only thing that has kept her moving. I'm ready, she says, her voice low but firm. Kyle gives a small nod, and they both move to the door. Outside, the wind howls louder, and Nira can feel the weight of the world pressing down on them, the tension of everything that has come before, all of it culminating in this moment. As they step into the darkness of the jungle once more, Nira feels the familiar bite of the cold air against her skin, the sharp smell of rain on the horizon. The journey to the rendezvous point is tense. Neither speaks as they make their way through the overgrown path that leads to a clearing where the new horizon is scheduled to meet them. Nira's mind races. She knows Kyle feels it too. The pressure of the situation, the sheer weight of the decision they've made. As they approach the clearing, Nira feels her pulse quicken. In the distance, she can make out the faint shape of a shuttle, its silhouette against the stormy sky. The engines hum faintly, a steady rhythm that seems to echo in her chest. They've arrived. I'm not going to forget what you've done, Nira says, her voice barely above a whisper as they step into the clearing. But I'll give you a chance. I'm not doing this because I think you're forgiven, but because we need to move forward. Kale looks at her, his expression softening for the briefest moment. His face is lit by the dim glow of the shuttle, and there's something in his eyes, something raw, almost broken. I don't expect forgiveness, he says quietly. I don't deserve it, but I'll prove that I'm not the same person. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Nira doesn't respond, but the quiet sincerity in his voice leaves a mark on her. She doesn't know if she'll ever forgive him, but she knows that for now she has to trust him. Not for the man he was, but for the man he's trying to become. And maybe, just maybe, she can find a way to forgive herself too. The shuttle's engines hum louder, and a figure emerges from the shadows. The silhouette is familiar, though it's been years since Nira has seen him. Captain Ralston, the voice over the radio, steps forward, his face set in the hard lines of a military man who has seen too much. We're here to help, Ralston says, his voice devoid of warmth, as if the words themselves are just a formality. But don't mistake this for anything else. We don't owe you anything. We're doing this because we need you alive, and you're useful to us. Nira stands tall, her eyes narrowing as she regards Ralston. His words don't surprise her. She's not expecting any kindness from him. But Kale seems to relax slightly, his shoulders lowering just a bit as he steps forward. We understand, Cal says, his voice steady, but lacking the defensiveness Nira had expected. We just need to get out of here. We don't need anything more from you. Ralston doesn't respond immediately, his gaze flicking between Kale and Nira. His expression is unreadable, but Nira can see the calculation in his eyes. There's something about him that feels cold, distant, a man who's long since stopped caring about right or wrong. Everything is about the mission. And Kale in this moment is just another soldier, another piece on a chessboard that's been moving far longer than either of them. We'll get you out of here, Ralston says, finally gesturing to the shuttle. But remember this, we're the ones in control. Don't forget who you're dealing with. Nira doesn't trust him, doesn't trust any of them. But she knows this is their best chance. She can feel Kale's gaze on her, the silent plea for her to accept this, for them to move forward for the sake of survival. Nira takes a deep breath, her eyes flicking back to the shuttle. The past is still with them, heavy and unyielding. But they can't outrun it. The only thing they can do is survive. I'm not going to forget any of this, Nira says, her voice firm as she turns toward the shuttle. But I'll do what I have to get us out of here. For both of us. Cal nods, his eyes full of understanding, but there's still a long road ahead of them. A road that is uncertain, fraught with danger, and full of the ghosts of their past. But for now, they'll face it together, even if they don't know what comes next. As they walk toward the shuttle, Nira feels the weight of their decisions. They have survived another day, and maybe there's a chance for them to survive what comes after. The shuttle hums softly as they board the metallic doors sliding closed behind them, with a finality that echoes in Nira's chest. The weight of the past, heavy and inescapable, seems to follow them as they make their way through the cramped interior of the shuttle. Nira can feel the tension in the air, the quiet anticipation, the unspoken questions that linger in the space between them, between her and Kyle, between them and the men and women of the new horizon, who for better or worse have become their only hope for escape. Cal stands beside her, his movements subdued but steady. His eyes flicker toward her every so often, as though searching for something, some sign that she's ready to move on, that she's ready to trust him. But Lira doesn't know what to give him. She's not ready to forgive. She's not ready to forget. But they both know that survival means moving forward, that at least they have in common. Ralston's voice crackles over the intercom, cold and businesslike. We'll be leaving the atmosphere shortly. Stay seated and prepare for takeoff. I'll brief you on the situation once we're clear. Lira nods to herself, not really listening. She doesn't care about Ralston's briefing, not right now. She's only focused on what comes next. The weight of the decision they've just made is pressing on her, suffocating her, but she has no choice but to face it. They've stepped into the unknown with no guarantees and no assurances. Kyle, despite everything, has led her here into the hands of the very people who were once her enemies. And yet she finds herself following him anyway. The shuttle lurches upward, breaking free from the gravity of Zura 9. Lira looks out the small window, watching the planet shrink away, a fading ball of color against the black void of space. The planet that has seen so much bloodshed, so much destruction, now lies behind them. And yet it feels like nothing is truly left behind. The past always follows, always finds a way to creep back into your life. What happens now? Lira asks, her voice low as she turns toward Kale. Her eyes are steady, but there's a softness there, now a fragility that she hasn't allowed herself to feel before. Kyle looks at her, his expression thoughtful, but there's a quiet determination in his gaze. I don't know, he admits, his voice steady, but tinged with uncertainty. But we have a chance, Lira. A chance to start over. A chance to make things right. Lira's heart aches at the words, at the truth they carry. A chance. But chances are fragile, and trust even more so. She doesn't know if Kale can make things right. She doesn't know if anyone can. But there's something in his eyes, something that makes her wonder if he's telling the truth, that he's trying in his own way to redeem himself. And for the first time, she allows herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there is a chance for them both. Not just for survival, but for something more. They sit in silence for a while, the quiet hum of the shuttle filling the space between them. There are no words left to say. They both know what's at stake. The new horizon, for all its promises, is still a wild card. Ralston and his crew, people who have their own agenda, are just another obstacle in their path. But in this moment, Lira realizes that for the first time in a long time, she has a choice to move forward, to put the past behind her, or to let it drag her under. And as much as she wants to cling to the anger, to the hurt, to the betrayal, she knows that doing so will only keep her trapped in a world of her own making. They reach orbit within hours, the soft hum of the engines marking the distance between them and Zura 9. The once distant stars now seem to stretch infinitely in every direction, the galaxy opening before them, like a vast unknown. It's a terrifying thought, the emptiness of space, but it's also a freeing one. There's no turning back now. They've crossed the point of no return. Cal leans forward slightly, his voice low but steady. When we reach the new horizon, I won't ask you to forgive me. I won't ask you to trust me. But I'm asking for a chance. A real chance to make up for what I've done. A chance to prove I'm not the man I was. Lira looks at him, really looks at him, and for the first time she sees him, without the veil of suspicion, without the weight of his past looming over her. She sees a man who has been broken, yes, but who is still standing still, fighting. And she sees something else, a shared understanding, a shared pain, a shared desire to move forward even if they're not sure how. I'll give you that chance, Lira says quietly, her voice filled with more than just survival. It's the sound of someone who is beginning to let go. But you'll have to prove it. Not just to me, but to yourself. Kale nods, a small but meaningful gesture of acceptance. I will. I swear it. The shuttle hums as it adjusts its course, moving away from Zura 9 toward the unknown, toward whatever future awaits them. The path ahead is uncertain, fraught with dangers and filled with the ghosts of their past. But there is something else now, something that wasn't there before, a flicker of hope. As the stars outside the window blur into the blackness of space, Lira feels the weight of her choices, of the fragile trust that has begun to form between them. She doesn't know what the future holds, but for the first time she allows herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they might make it through. Maybe, just maybe, they'll survive. As Nira and Kale stand at the edge of an uncertain future, the weight of their past hangs heavy in the air between them. Their journey has been one of survival, betrayal, and reluctant trust. They've faced the harsh realities of war-fought battles, both external and internal, and navigated the complexities of their own identities. But as they prepare to leave the ashes of Zura 9 behind, they both understand that survival is no longer just about staying alive. It's about what comes next, how they choose to rebuild from the wreckage of their histories. Kyle, once a part of the very force that destroyed everything Nira held dear, has sought redemption through small acts of courage, through the willingness to confront his own demons. Nira, scarred by loss and distrust, has been forced to grapple with the idea of forgiveness, even as she struggles to overcome the anger and betrayal that have defined her existence. Together, they've found common ground not in shared beliefs or ideals, but in the simple need to survive and move forward. But survival is not a guarantee of redemption. Their future is uncertain, and the new horizon offering a path to safety remains a potential threat. Trust is fragile and loyalty is still unproven. Yet in the quiet moments of shared vulnerability, Nira realizes that they are no longer just enemies caught in a war. They are allies in the ashes, bound by the same fight for a future that is theirs to shape. In the end, their journey is not just about escaping the past, but about facing it together, allowing the possibility of forgiveness, and accepting that the future, however uncertain, is worth fighting for. The story may be far from over, but for now they have each other, and that's enough.